Ever wish you had someone to tell you the truth about what it takes to run a successful business and live a fulfilling life? Well, amiguita, you've come to the right place. So grab your favorite cafecito or cocktail, your courage, and let's get to work. I'm Jenna Saborges, a therapist, business strategist, mindset coach for entrepreneurs, and a feisty Latina from Miami. And I'm determined to teach you the exact tools you need to stop settling and start kicking some serious derriere. What do you say? Are you in? Then let's get started. Welcome to Latinas Empowering Latinas podcast. Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of this series with Gaby Rincon, personal finance coach and strategist. Today, I want to focus on how to take control of your finances as an entrepreneur. So I want to ask Gaby, what's it like when, first of all, when you're just starting off your business? So it's this balance, because I've heard you say too, Gaby, like the perfect time to start is like when you're in college, right? To learn all these money things, like when you get that first check. So in the same thinking box, I'm thinking of entrepreneurs, like the best way to learn to start kind of segmenting your monies on what to do with taxes or retirement is when you're starting. But when you're starting, you also don't have a lot of money.
Exactly.
How do we navigate that? And then I also want to talk about the importance of paying yourself first.
Yes, absolutely.
So take it,
Love
Gaby.
that. Okay, so obviously we have to acknowledge that if you're starting a business, you're an entrepreneur, there's not too much income, too much revenue coming in, right? But I think what's really great, and I'm going to plug in this book, Profit First. It's really great, right? Because what the idea is that even though maybe your revenue is like, I don't know, $1,000 a month, whatever it actually is, you're still setting it in the way that it's going to be when your revenue is $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month or whatever it is, right? Again, so what does it come down to? Again, we're building the habit, right? That's what we're going towards. And I think that all entrepreneurs, even if it's like, I'm not bringing much in, or perhaps you're subsidizing your business still, or you still have to, keep a W-2 job kind of thing while you're building this, not only should we build the habit, but like, let's start actually knowing where our money for our business is going. Like, it's really interesting to me that sometimes what people struggle with is like, well, I spend kind of about like 80-ish dollars on subscriptions, or I spend maybe like 500 for the rental of my office, or like whatever it is. And we get these kind of like estimations. And again, not coming at it from a judgment perspective, but if we don't know where the business expenses, the business revenue is going, then how can we ever increase that or build on that, right? How do we know how much we can afford to pay ourselves to take as an owner draw, right? Whatever it is. So like at least having a real understanding of the incoming, outgoing, and that would be huge, because potentially, like, especially when you're first starting out, like, you're probably not hiring a bookkeeper, like it's really, it's you're the one out there. And so you can't necessarily afford like QuickBooks or something, right? Like some of these really great resources that are out there, these like software systems, like, okay, then like print out your statement once a month and like categorize your expenses so that you can start seeing, maybe I'm spending a little bit too much on subscriptions for like, whatever it is, like software. Or you can start aligning it in a way that you can maximize and start actually making some profit, right? Something that I find really interesting, and I've seen that kind of like big gap of not having a full grasp of where the incoming, outgoing money is going, what it's doing, even if they bring in significant more income, like 10 to 15 to $20,000 a month. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like, I don't really know how much I'm spending on each thing, much less do I necessarily know how to make like a P&L statement, like a profit and loss statement, right? Like it all comes down to your business is meant to make you money as the owner, as the entrepreneur. But if you don't know what your business income and expenses are, how can you be comfortable taking a draw, taking a salary, taking, like pay, right? And so then we see entrepreneurs who have been in business for a couple of years and they're like, I've never paid myself, kind of thing, right? Wait, how do we fix that? How do we align that? Let's see. So is it because you're overspending too much on XYZ? Is your business at the point where it can afford these expenses? And if not, then maybe it's not worth it yet, right? Because again, the whole point of starting a business, of becoming an entrepreneur, is that you want this to be what you do, right? You want this business to be like ideally your full time, I'm assuming, right? Most of us do want that. We can't continuously be subsidizing it because we're not aware of what the revenue is doing, essentially.
So many things coming up. So I want to say that all of us, like both of us, right? At least, and most people probably listening to this are entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And we can align with wanting to start something to get freedom. But if
Yes.
we're then enslaved to our jobs, our businesses, because we keep putting money back into it, then we're not really free. So that's like the first thing. And this is so huge because it's the sense of we wanted to succeed, right? So I think in the beginning, a lot of us just pour back into the business because we need it to live. And then we're not thinking about us living, and we get into this habit. And I think it wasn't until I read Profit First that I really like got it. I mean, it wasn't 100,000% like perfect for me because there were a lot of things to navigate, but the concept of like, you need to pay yourself first and then everything else kind of falls into place.
Yes.
When I'm working with entrepreneurs, there's usually this dichotomy that is really hard. There's either people that say that they can't invest in anything. And that's really hard too, because I'm a believer that you kind of need to make it to spend it. And I'm not the most wonderful financial person, but that you need to invest somehow. But then there are some people that are like throw money at all these things. And I'm like, well, you don't need all of those things when you're starting off. It's this balance. And I think that's where everybody gets lost. There's this balance of things. So I would definitely say for me, but it's different because I'm at this different part of my life, is I wish the three things I wish I would have invested in from day one would have been a bookkeeper that was like hourly, an accountant. For me, that was a female, because I feel like it was very different dealing with somebody who was Caucasian and a man when it came to my finance. I didn't find it was helpful, and probably somebody that knew entrepreneurship. And then working with a personal coach from the beginning, I think I wouldn't have put myself in a lot of the situations that I was in. And I think that those, instead of pouring back into the business always, I would have loved for someone to say like, listen, these are three really big, important things that you really should invest in the beginning, because it's going to pay off at the end. It's going to save you money with your taxes. It's going to save you like a lot of heartache with your numbers. Those are three really big things. Okay. I'm going to ask another really hard question. How do you pay yourself first when the business isn't making money yet? Like, okay, wait, hold on. Let me
like literally.
Like, yeah. So you've opened the business and you're working it, but you still haven't kind of like either broken even or made enough profit to be able to pay yourself. But then you really also have all these other business expenses too.
How do you start building that, essentially, right? And I love the idea that like Profit First talks about like anytime that you do get that revenue, right? Anything that comes into the business, then you already allocate it between the three categories, right? And the paying yourself first, like that happens first. So say like your first thing, I don't know, depending on what your business is, right? So maybe it's $100 this time or $1,000, like whatever it is that you're selling or service that you're providing. But either way, you're dividing it based on what the allocation should be. So you're paying yourself first, and it's uncomfortable because you're like, what if I don't have enough to pay for the business expenses? And I think that, again, that's a reality of the situation, is that our business might not be quite profitable yet, but you're building that habit of like, I get paid no matter what. But then if we get into the situation where like, okay, it looks like I'm going to need to cover a little bit, then let's give your business a loan from you, right? Because then you can be like giving your business like me, Gabby, is giving RPF Education a loan, so that then I can like list that. Okay, like I just gave my business a $2,000 loan to float us. But then in the bookkeeping, I can list it as a loan so that once my business is profitable, I'm paying myself back. Exactly. And they're paying me back for my loan, and they're paying me as the owner, as somebody who works for the business, right? So you're taking your owner's draw, your salary, and you're also being paid back for a loan.
Way over the head of a lot of people starting off, which is fine. But this is why I need to explain again the importance of working with somebody like a personal strategist. But I'm going to break this down in like therapy language and baby language at the same time. The money that's coming in from this moment on that you hear this episode is money that you were not counting on, money you had not made. So that is the perfect opportunity to say anything that comes in from here on in, these are the categories I'm going to divide them into. One of them is paying myself first. Gabby, what are the other ones? Do you know what they are?
So I think the basic 3 that we need, and it can get more complex as you build, but paying yourself first, meaning your actual income, right? Then taxes, operational kind of expenses, and then like what's considered profit or like reinvestment into the business.
So I'm paying myself first.
Yes.
I'm like money away from Uncle Sam.
Yep.
And then I'm whatever's left over from there, whatever percentage we choose, then that I have permission to put back into the business.
Correct.
I love that you're simplifying those 3 things. How do we come up with percentages for those things?
That's really interesting, right? And I think that we're getting into a little bit of the realm of more business finance. And I love talking about this, but I just want to acknowledge that that's not necessarily my expertise. I would say that like usually like 50% kind of operational costs, 20% for taxes, 30% for, you know, your own salary, your own income is a pretty solid place to start for most people. And again, depending on your business, some of the more details of it, I would
so again, not cookie
follow up, but exactly.
And I would guess that based on if this is a brand new business and you've never done anything but put money back into it, I love that you always talk about baby steps. So maybe it's putting off, I have no idea and I'm horrible with numbers, but maybe it's starting off with just like 10% for yourself and 10% for taxes. It's better than 100% going back into the business and starting to divide it like that and then kind of mixing and playing with those numbers as you get farther.
And I think that most of the entrepreneurs listening are going to be paid for services, right? So let's say, just because it's an easy number, let's say that you get paid $100 for your appointment. Then, okay, like you mentioned, if taking $30 is too much, then $10 goes to you and $10 goes to taxes, and we can leave the 80 in there. But you can do it like that every single time that you're paid for a service, for a product, like divide it. And I know that it seems maybe a little intense because you're in there like, okay, what if I have like 8 appointments a day or something like that, right? I mean, well, if we have 8 appointments a day, I think we're pretty solid, like good for you. But you can do it once a week kind of thing, right? Or once a day. Like it depends on you. Like what do you need to do in order to make you feel like you are in the driver's seat, like you're in control and you are actually getting paid. And in terms of the loan that I'm talking about, Gaby gives RPF a loan. What I mean by that is that our business and personal finances are so separate, right? They are not mixed or intertwined that I can take my own money that's sitting in Gaby Rincon's savings account and then invest it into my business. So I'm still subsidizing, but I'm not subsidizing with the revenue that my business brings in. I'm still like paying myself for it, if that makes sense, you know? And maybe that loan is going to be floated for a while. Like your business probably will need like at least maybe a year. I don't know. I'm guessing here a year before things are really settled and really, really cooking. It's the concept of this is my business finances. These are my personal finances, and they don't necessarily mix unless I'm being really purposeful and I'm going to be documenting everything, because that's a huge thing that entrepreneurs will do, right? Is that they mix the business and the personal.
So again, if you're listening to this and you are mixing or you don't know what we're talking about, your business account, you should have a separate checking business account and you should have a separate personal checking account. And it's when should that be, again, that thought of like, when does this need to happen? I would say the second your business starts making money, it needs its own account, even if it's $1 in there. It's separate, because that's for bookkeeping, for taxes, for your sanity. It just makes it easier, and it just, trust me. Okay. I think I have 2 more questions. Okay. So we talked about profit first. We talked about having awareness. We talked about what happens when we're not making enough yet that we feel, right? I want to talk about going from a personal place again, a very recent one. So recently I was sick. I usually work like no matter what. I think that's whatever script that is from my father. Like I show up no matter what.
Yeah.
But I got so sick that I wasn't able to. And it was at a point where I could also affect my clients, which I wasn't going to do. So I had to take off a week. But for me, a week's worth of work is substantial.
Yes.
So I want to talk about, what do you do when there's either an emergency, your taxes we kind of touched on, whether it's a slow season, whether it's an illness, whether it's a natural disaster. I mean, in Florida, we have hurricane season and there's earthquakes places, there's blizzards other places. How do people navigate these things that I think most people don't think about when you're starting off, because you're just like on this hustle and you want your business to grow and you're not working for anybody else. How do you make room for these things when you're still a baby in the financial piece of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why I want to really have people understand the idea that we are separating your personal finances from your business finances. Okay. If you have to take a week off or something like that, right? All of a sudden, there's not nearly as much revenue coming in for your business. Now, that is also why we have that savings account for your business specifically. That's why we are starting to allocate from every single transaction that we get. Part of that goes towards our operational costs, towards our just in case costs, right? So that you have something in there if need be. Okay. Now, in terms of the personal finances, it's the same concept, right? Because we have the emergency fund where if all of a sudden I don't have a salary, I don't have an income, that I'm not tempted to swipe a credit card, that I'm avoiding that unnecessary debt. And so I know it seems like, didn't she just say the same thing? Like basically make sure that you have some savings. And yeah, I guess essentially I am saying the same thing. But again, contextually speaking, is Gabby stressed because she didn't get RPF, like she didn't get any income from RPF for this week? So Gabby's personal finances need work to make sure that she has like an effective and a fully funded emergency fund? Or is RPF stressed because they didn't have that revenue for the week to cover their operational costs? Or worst case, is it both? Is it both situations? In which case, all of these things then end up pointing to let's develop the habit of actually allocating our funds in a way to account for potentially missed work, right? But if we're at the point where we cannot afford to take a day off, we cannot afford to take a week off, like what you're talking about, you end up still being like kind of enslaved to your job, even though it's your business, right? So it's not that freedom. The success of your business and being able to have like a thriving practice with like the clients that are consistently coming, right? That is one step. But if you don't manage it effectively, then you're never going to see that the beauty of your work and the freedom come through on your personal life. And entrepreneurs, I think, like you mentioned, right? You want your business to live, you want your business to thrive. Our identity starts becoming like our business. Our identity starts becoming like, I'm almost seeing like my self-worth based on how my business is doing, how it's thriving and everything. We have to acknowledge that, again, your business is a means to an end. It's not the end. It's the goal is that freedom. The goal is like being able to work from anywhere if you want to, or the freedom to maybe specialize in a very like in a specific way. Like I want to work with these people, or whatever it is, like the freedom to essentially be more in control of your life as opposed to going to a traditional 9-to-5 job. So if we don't manage our business finances well and account for those times where you will not be bringing money in, then we're sacrificing our personal freedom. We're sacrificing what the whole goal of probably starting a business was. The same kind of concept applies to slow seasons. Most business sectors have slow seasons, right? There's just, whether it's summer because everybody's on vacation, or maybe it's winter because you live up north and it's snowy and all the snowbirds leave, like whatever it is, you have to understand what your client base is doing so that you can plan accordingly for it. In the same way that you have to understand that in the summer, if you live in the desert, your AC, your electric bill is going to go up significantly more because you're using a lot more power. It's accounting for the fluctuations in expenses and the fluctuations in revenue that we have to start doing. And how do we do that? Well, by really being in the driver's seat and understanding what these expenses are. It all comes down to like just you knowing where everything is going, you knowing where you have what you have to pay. What are those absolute necessities that you have? Like, I don't know, for example, is there a way that in the summer, if that's your slow season, can you pause some of the expenses? Like, can you not use some of those? Like, can you decrease, I don't know, Google ads or like whatever it is that you're using. Salesforce is a really common software for a lot of entrepreneurs, but it's an expensive software. Do we really have the need for it to pay like whatever it is, $75 a month per user kind of thing. That's a significant cost. That's for most of us, 75% of our hourly rate. Is it really worth like, whatever, 45 minutes of our time? And I think that's a really fascinating thing, is to start seeing some of your expenses as like your time. Is this worth 15 minutes of my time, an hour of my time, 3 hours of my time? Putting it in terms of time, maybe not so much, right?
I love that concept. I use that a lot with other things when I'm working with people. Is like, is this, you can do it all, but do you have to do it all? Should you do it all? What can that replace? I do that a lot. This is what I was saying, what I was going to interject before was these are the things. And that's why I keep saying, I wish somebody would have sat me down when I started and said a bookkeeper, an accountant, and a strategist,
a coach,
because those are tools. And it's again, things that people don't talk about, which you talked about in a different episode, and having the tools that you need to do things correctly. And if you set yourself up from the get-go, or from when you're hearing this episode on, it is a world of difference, because any little baby step, like Gaby says, is a step in the right direction to feel better. Gaby, thank you so much. We did three and three. It has been an honor, a pleasure. I am so grateful for your knowledge in our community. I don't think you know the extent of what you're doing in the world yet. I think you know a little piece of it. I don't think you know the magnitude of what this does in our community and breaking generational cycles. It's incredible. Please let people know how they can work with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And on a personal level, I love working with you every time. We just have such a great time. So I just love any time that I get to talk to you. If you want to work with me, please find us on TikTok, on Instagram, RPF Education, or check out our website, rpfeducation.com. Send me an email, shoot me a DM. Like, I would love the opportunity to work with you on a one-on-one basis as part of a workshop. Honestly, depending on what you need, I am happy to support. So really looking forward to impacting our community, because I think it's a really worthwhile mission. And I love giving back, and it's a really soul-aligned mission for me. Thanks
Gaby,
for having me again.
For you again. So for all the links that Gaby just shared, janessaborges.com/47 for episode 47. If you missed the other episodes we did with Gaby, go back and scroll through. They were episodes 45 as well as 43. And we talked about all things money mindset, money scripts, money trauma, first gen money stuff. We did a lot in 3 episodes.
So great. So fun.
But the best way is really to work with Gaby one-on-one. She truly is a priceless asset in our community. And I definitely share you with whomever I meet anytime anything money comes up or anything business, like aligning yourself. So thanks so much, Gaby.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always such an honor to speak to you. If you loved today's episode, I would love and be so grateful if you left a review. So let me know what was your greatest takeaway, any aha moments, and how you were inspired. I'd love to give you a shout out in a future episode. Until next time, Maminita.